converted man here, and I've got Nehemiah Davis. That's how to say his name, apparently. I don't know anymore. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Glad to be a part.
Yeah, so apparently I had analyzed, I didn't do a proper analysis. I did a live look at a video you made, How to Defend the Faith with Confidence. And it only took me an hour, 11 minutes, and 22 seconds to cover what you did in 10 minutes and 11 seconds. So my track record for being short and succinct is on track. I'm doing great with my short response videos. As I tell people, sometimes it takes a long time to explain what's wrong. It's easy to say when something is, you just say something and then somebody has to explain why that's wrong. It takes a while to do that. So I don't remember that conversation or what I said or your video per se, because that was 4 weeks ago, and I don't even know what I did yesterday at this point. So anyways, that's okay, though. You're a theist. We're going to want to understand, you're in school right now. Yes. So you're getting your divinity degree and all that. And for whatever reason, you decided to make a video responding to atheists, and that got my attention. And now you suffer the wrath of lobsters and be converted men. So what were you thinking? What were you doing?
Yeah, honestly, so the video I released was actually part 2 of my micro projects. I have 4 of them to do. My first one was a development of basically a apologetical ministry, as far as within a church, almost like an auxiliary. And it was just a ministry development plan. Part 2, I kind of did it backwards, because part 3, which is where I am right now, is part 2. I did a video, but part 3 is basically setting up a YouTube page. I did this portion first, and then a video. But the video I did was part of my micro project, and it had to meet a certain criteria, certain points I had to talk on. It couldn't go too in deep, and that's why it was surface level 10 minutes. It couldn't be over the 10-minute mark. But that's where the video came from, and it caught the attention of you and Bill, who was also in the comment. We actually have had email wise.
Bill's somebody from back in the day. He used to do a lot of stuff, and then he kind of switched over to text only. So, but he's somebody I've known here and there on YouTube, on and off. I've never really interacted directly with him, but it didn't get any big attention or anything like that, nor was it necessarily meant to do that. Or sometimes videos get really big and sometimes they don't. There's a whole metaphysics to that I don't understand or care about, because I do YouTube as a hobby. So you're a theist. You're Christian, Protestant? What is there a particular denomination that you're going to do, or that you're into? Or
so I'm and y'all, I'm standing. I like standing I got my desk here.
Okay.
I am a non-denominational Christian. Been for last several many years, and I guess I'd say I really started taking it serious in my teen years. I was adopted beforehand, so in the context of that, some things happened in the foster care system that should not have happened to a kid. So for a while, I didn't want to believe in a God. I didn't believe in God, because how could a good God allow certain things to happen that are not good? And so after a while, I just the family we were adopted into, both parents were pastors. I developed, I guess, a gift of playing the piano. So I was a musician and, just playing the play as a hobby. And then years later, went to school not to learn how to preach, but to basically do some study, how to study, not just looking into Christianity, looked in other religions, Muslim, Buddhism, the whole nine. And then, landed in Christianity. I got my bachelor's of theology, master's of divinity, and then will soon be done with my doctorate of ministry and with a focus on Christian apologetics.
Okay. And so you kind of came to faith, through your adopted family then, or
some people would say that when I was talking to Bill, Bill was like, it was basically an introduction. But again, God, I was rejecting any notion of a God because, again, the question that, how, we all hear the term God is good. Well, how can a good God allow such bad things to happen? That was my basis and my rejection of a God, not just talking about the Christian God, but a God in general.
Yeah.
And right. So, because my thing was, and I say I was agnostic because my dad was an old school evangelist. So that was a turnoff already, because all we heard about was hell, it's hell. And you're going to hell, and well, how do we not go to hell? You know what I mean? And so it was low key a turn off, and I was like, an idea of God or a God, it just don't sound right because again, if God is good, why is there a hell? These are questions to ask, and so so what ended up happening. I guess I said I went on a journey looking into different things, and not saying that I needed a God or that, it wasn't really my thing, but I'd say the introduction of a God, of course, came through them because they were pastors. And so that's kind of what fueled, like, if there is a God, and that was my notion every time I would look at anything, if there is, and that's how I started my research and started looking into things. If there is, even down to like the Bible in general, if this God is real, or if God is real, why are certain things happening, and like, why are certain things condoned? These were questions or different avenues, or I say angles I would take, like, why? And that kind of fueled my pursuit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the other religions that you looked into, I don't know, like, how deep do you say that you looked into each one? Like, if you could, I mean, like, you could assign an arbitrary value, like really deep, or percentage, or whatever I don't know, but I know very little about Hinduism. Shiva the Destroyer. That's it. And I know even less. I know a little bit about Zoroastrianism. But I know about Christianity because I used to be one. And then logic ate me. So, but what those stories, those ideas of God, those versions of God are very different than, especially Hindu is very different from the Western monotheistic God.
Right.
So it's kind of a culture thing. Is there something about the Western version of God that was more palatable because of that, or do you think it's more about, like, you found something, there was something to the story that attracted you, or something like that? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but...
Oh no, you're good. So that's a great question. So I wouldn't say it's even the Western version of God that I looked into, because the God I looked into would be almost equivalent to, of course, how they say the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob.
Right, right.
Because the Western idea of God can be a little radical, honestly, if I could be quite honest. And I started from 42 AD after, the journey that Mark took to Africa, and I started from the Coptic Church, because the truth and the fact of the matter is, and what most people don't know or realize, when people say, Christianity is the white man's religion, it's not, because of the simple fact Africa had, this God had, Jesus or whatever transliteration you have, almost 300 years before Europe even got him, or heard of him. And then, of course, especially, not to bring race into it, but it is part of it, to where, slavery and certain things, a lot of, Black or African American people, they're only subjected to what they know, in a sense, and the first thing they say is that Christianity is a white man's religion. We were given their Bible, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't the case. So I look at the earlier version, again, because the evangelicals have kind of turned nationalism into Christianity. And the truth is, that's not the case. And nationalism, look, don't get me wrong. I love my country. I serve. But nationalism and Christianity is like oil and vinegar.
Yeah. What's that verse? Give unto Caesar what's Caesar's, kind of thing, Some of the more, I don't know if there's just a louder group or whatever, but people are very worried about the evangelistic types that are part of the Republican Party. I think really, I'm pretty apolitical, so I don't care about politics, but I think that the Republican Party would do really good to just say, you know what? You guys do your own thing. You make your own party. We're going to just take this stuff and run with that works.
Right.
And you guys go do something else because it seems like to some that they're trying to get religion into government, and it's like the government's just going to screw that up, right? You've seen how well government works. Come on, guys, you really want, and then I guess that they naively believe or think that it will be their version of Christianity or something, or like a generic. I'm like, no, man, it will be the exact version that you don't want. And then why? And then even if you had it for, let's say you had it for 4 or 8 years, whatever. Okay, then the next person that comes along, they're just going to put in whatever they want. Now you set a precedent that is not going to be good for anybody, because it's going to be some other idiot's religion,
Right, exactly. So, and I'm sorry, I'm grabbing the water.
That's all right. That's
fine. And
he's disappeared. He's invisible.
I'm sorry.
No,
I had to grab more water. But
he vanished. Oh my word! It's a miracle. It's true. It's all true. No, sorry, it's messing around there. But so I mean, okay, so we're for separation of church and state, and that's great. I'm glad we're on the same page on that, because that is a big worry for many non-believers, is that people of any religion tried it, and was like, oh, let's do 10 commandments on the side of a courthouse again. Let's, do this or that. And it's like, come on, guys, let's do prayer in school. I'm like, what's going to happen, right? The Satanist church is going to do it too, because they're there to annoy people. And that's exactly what happens. So the school's like, you know what? This one school I read about, probably Texas, because always is Texas. And they're like, well, we'll not have any after-school programs. How about that? And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens. So,
takes everything. And it's almost like a division in a sense, because the truth and the fact of the matter, like over time, it's turned into basically black Jesus versus white Jesus.
Yeah. There's
No.
Hebrew Israelites, I suppose. There's
Yeah.
that whole thing, which is its own
Yeah.
unique thing. And then there's I guess, a different version of that. Well, Jesus would have been Jewish, so he would have been swarthy. He would have been neither of our colors. He would have been something kind of in between the two of us. And it's like, and goodness, we don't know anything about what he looked like, or
Right.
there's been guesses and there's been attempts to try to figure that out. I'm like, well,
Right.
there's nothing to base it on, so we don't. And of course, then you've got the Shroud of Turin people. It's like, if I hear about that one more time, I swear. No. And it was like, for a while, it came back up. It was rolling on YouTube again. I'm like, no, it's fake, guys. Stop. It's been debunked. And it's like, the Catholic Church has it under lock and key. So if it is anything, which I don't think, we can't look at it. We can't test it. We can't examine it because they're holding on to it. So whether it's fake or not, it's like, well, you can believe what you want, but it's, unless you can test it as a skeptic, I'm going to doubt it,
and only a few people have tested it.
A handful, like two or three. Yeah, 2 or 3 people. They were allowed to only because the Catholic Church basically allowed them, and of course, they were Catholic Church people, and then one something else, and I think that they were also Christian or whatever. So I'm like, well, and they sent off little tiny fabric samples to some lab, and they're like, well, we think it's whatever. It was it was like there wasn't really anything there to talk about because they had so little to work with.
Right.
But and then you've got other things. We get the miracle of Fatima and things like this that I've heard about from time to time. Mm-hmm. And whenever I go digging for more information on things like this, it always winds up being nothing I can explore. There's just nothing there. It's a story. And I go, look, guys, if you're saying that you got some statue that survived an explosion, that's pretty cool. Let me try to blow up your statue. And if it doesn't blow up, that's pretty cool. And if it does, then I think I've, taken care of your supposed miracle statue, So, but of course, nobody can, mess with it. Nobody can touch it, it's guarded and all this. And it's like, so it's a one-time event. You said it got some acid on it and, it survived an explosion, but nobody can repeat that. So it's, but, and that's kind of, to roll off to that, to the claims made in not just the Judeo-Christian Bible, but all holy books are ones about supernatural elements that we can't, we can't really verify that. We can't test any of that stuff. So how do you, because you're an intelligent guy, I would assume, and so how do you just believe in miracles if you can't access them?
Right, and one of the things, which is rejected. I won't go into it because it's personal experience, and I know you guys don't accept that. And this is what I told Bill, I avoid precept, I avoid personal experience, because precept is built on the authority that, of the Bible. And here it is. And
it's not even really built on that. Yeah. But
right.
Yeah.
And as I told you in the email, I tell my students, those 2 items you can't go by simply because it's rejected, because you can't accept what I say unless you see it for yourself. And
even that it might be a problem, because me seeing it isn't enough. I need it that everybody else can also see it and test it and repeatedly test it. There's an idea, since you're doing seminary and all that, you're learning about the Bible, and there's this idea that God is unchanging. So I don't know what that means to you per se, but I'm wondering if you think that that's true to any degree.
Yeah. So I'd say they will put it to his methods. God's unchanging, as far as they say God don't lie. So that's something that doesn't change.
Mm.
He has no respect to person. God is love. Things like that
Mhm.
is unchanging. And to go back, you asked a question regarding how deep did I look into
Okay, fair enough.
other
Yeah.
religions.
Mhm.
So I looked into Buddhism, and um, it was like I didn't make it past the surface with Buddhism. I
Mm.
get it. Be your highest point, and I agree. Be your better self. Hinduism, again, surface level, because I don't want to be confused on whom I'm serving. And the closest thing, really, and even down to when you brought up the Hebrew Israelites, I don't condone I don't condone Hebrew Israelites, because it's a bit, they're extremists to me. They're extremist Jews, if I be quite honest, because they preach a religion or a doctrine that only black and brown people only is getting into heaven, and is based off of this notion: here a little, there a little, picking the Bible apart like a buffet. So we're
Mm.
going to take this scripture and put it with this scripture. And what I typically tell my students: the Bible is a mixture of allegorical stories, as some poems, songs, stuff like that in there.
Mm.
You got to be able to, as I say, context clues. You got to be able to
Mm.
take the context of when that scripture was written and apply it to, what's being said. We can argue interpretation all day. One thing we can't argue is context. And
Mhm.
it's such division. Sometimes I ain't gonna lie to you, Dan. It makes me sick sometimes. Seeing all the division within something we're all claiming to be Christians, but we are so divided because you don't believe in the baptism, you don't believe in this, and so that's what fueled my okay. I don't want to look at the Jesus that's being presented today. Um, I want to see the Jesus from then what happened after, because of course that's where Christianity begins, after the unaliving and the resurrection, per se, of Christ. And that's where it all begins. And so that's where I begin again, talking about when John Mark went to Africa. His first stop was Africa, and the first church of Christianity was established was the Coptic church there. And then Ethiopia and all those places. Uh, you know, that's what pushed me, to look into Jesus.
Mhm.
And because of course the I guess the cornerstone of Christianity is the life of Jesus.
Right. So, what I was going to go going back to the, if God doesn't change in
Mhm.
some degree, whatever that might mean, then it would follow that uh, there was a test that was done in the Older Testament, I believe, between
Mhm.
Baal and Yahweh.
Mhm.
And this would seem like, well, if God was fine with it back then, why can't we do that now?
Mhm.
And shouldn't we expect the same result? And I've asked that, and basically it's like, well, there's really doesn't appear to be a good answer of why God wouldn't do the same thing it already did back then, do it again here, so we could have a repeatable test to demonstrate, look, we've
Mhm.
got these altars, and we don't, I mean, I don't know if we need to duplicate it exactly, but I suppose that's a start. But then, to get some sort of response, that would be instant, predictable, and to see one erupts in flame every time, then you could even have it be like, let's now put that out. Okay, God, thanks for doing that. Now, two light it on fires for yes, one for no, and now we've got a way to communicate with God that we can be more sure of. But
Right.
they're that they first were told, oh, we can't test God. So what? So did
Mm.
God change or did it not change? Because if it didn't change, we could test it. If it did change, then it's lying that it doesn't change. So which is
Right.
it? Do you have
Yeah.
a solution for that?
So, the story of, if I'm not mistaken, is Elisha with the prophets of Baal, and he called fire down from heaven. It consumed the water, or it
Mm-hmm.
consumed the water, left the wood intact, and all that. It boils down because, again, in the Old Testament, altars were being built for, as a way of atonement,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and priests at that time were, those were the ones who had that, I get at that time in the Old Testament, that communication with God. So
Mm-hmm.
it was the priests went before God, they spoke to God. And so, to whereas the testing, again, there's other ways, again, which I can't submit, because it's on, personal testimony. But there's other ways I've seen, different things, as far as what we say, the movement of God. Um, Honestly, I would love to see such a thing. If I could call down fire from heaven and it do what it did in the Bible, by all means,
Yeah,
I would.
it would certainly be evidence, because that's really what the atheists, broadly speaking, we are asking for and have asked for is
Mhm.
empirical, verifiable, repeatable test, empirical evidence, something to, you know, God is an odd idea in that other things that we have in life, we define it first by seeing the object, and then the definition comes after. We
Mhm.
saw a rock, we said, okay, we're going to call that thing rock. Now let's get picky about what a rock is. And you get the scientists and they're like, okay, look, it has to be this big and it has to have this in it. And if it doesn't
Right.
do that, then it's not a rock anymore.
Yeah.
And you get really technical with all that. I'm
Mhm.
kind of a simplistic guy. I go, okay, well, I've got a lobster. Okay, it's a stuffed lobster. It wasn't a real lobster, but it was a lobster. We all understood that. We didn't deny that lobsters exist.
Yeah.
And I've had it many times. I said, okay, well, God could just levitate it off my hand. I guess. I don't know if God can do that. Maybe God can't levitate stuff, but it doesn't do anything. And neither does any angels or spirits or demons or devils or anything. I've put it on my head. I've done all this ridiculous stuff, and nothing happens that I don't
Happens.
expect from the mundane, normal world. And so I'm like, okay, well, the only thing I can say about these entities, if they are, is negative. I can say that they don't respond to my requests, no matter how sincere I am. They don't respond to demands. They don't respond to pleas. They don't seem to respond in any way that I can verify.
Mm.
So I find that to be a problem. How do you square that? How do you find that to not, it's like, who cares? Or, I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah. To me, it just boils down to the individual, because, again, um, there's things I've seen, in the contrary, and, I guess my best explanation would be, simply, it just boiled. And when I say relationship, I don't mean like like your like a relationship, could be the reason, because Paul, who is a historic figure in the church, he had such an encounter with God which converted him. Or he was Saul first, Saul of
Mm,
Tarsus, and so, he had an encounter with God, and that's really, that was my, I'd say, an encounter with God as well,
mhm.
on my own personal, journey. And so, as to, as I told Bill, and I'll tell you, that I'll be straight up, I don't have an answer for that.
Mhm.
I can't square that with you, because it'll be solely based on my
Right.
personal experience. And
There.
again, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to mention Langston Hughes, who is
Hmm.
a very prolific author and has short essay called Salvation.
Hmm.
Um, and I've read that many times. And here's somebody, are you familiar with the essay or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just recap it for anybody that
For
might
everybody
not
else.
be. Yeah, and well, I've told people about this. We've read it together, so I'm sure all my audience knows. But just in case, you never know. So basically, he's a young man. He's a boy. His grandma tells him, you're gonna feel this thing when Jesus comes for you. They go to church. They sit there. He's sitting in the front row, and they're praying and singing, and he's waiting for this feeling, this thing to come and something to happen, and nothing's happening. He's starting to sweat, and people are like, "Come on," And the other boy says, "F it," or whatever he says, and he goes up, and he doesn't get hit by lightning, and Langston's just like, "Okay, well." I guess I have to go up, otherwise this, I guess, it's like, what's going to happen if I just sit here? Are we going to be here all night? The social pressure to perform is intense in that moment. And you can feel that weight propel. I think I would go up too. I think anybody would, because it's like, if you don't, what's going to happen? We're just going to sing and dance and pray all night and then nothing happens? What? I don't know. There's no way out other than to pretend that something happened. So he did, and he goes up but then that night he's crying and his grandma, he overhears his grandma say, "Oh, you got the Holy Spirit." And she's so happy. But what she doesn't know that he does is he's crying because in his mind, Jesus didn't come for him. He was waiting for Jesus. He was expecting Jesus. Now, when I first read that, I was still a Christian. And then when I reread it as a skeptic, I had a different take. So as a Christian, I said, well, his grandma screwed up. His grandma told him that he should expect this thing, and that was wrong. That's why he didn't get it, because his grandma screwed it up. And then as a skeptic, I was like, well, God screwed it up. It doesn't matter. Who cares what the grandma said? He was expecting something, do something. So he wanted that, but God didn't come for him if there was, and so he didn't have, and so you're left with, well, why didn't God, if there is a God, why did God not care about Langston Hughes? It seemed like he was ready for it. He wanted it. He seemed sincere. I'm just taking him at his word. So what happened there, and it's very odd.
And that's the thing. And that's where I say, I wanted to, find God on my terms, because, I don't know if you've ever been to a black church. The black church is very radical in a sense.
I've been to a gospel church once, and then I went to a different one that was, I don't know what to describe it as for it, but it was in an area where I was the minority, and I was still young, but I remember we were all just kind of chatting, and it wasn't really, I don't know, we were talking about Abraham. And I'm like, so Pastor, do you think the reason he had all these problems because of all those women? And he starts laughing. He's like, yeah, he'd be calling, he starts goofing on it. He's like, oh, so many problems, so many wives, like, yeah. We're all laughing about it. Yeah. So I had a good time there. I've had, I had nothing but positive, times in church. Yeah. That wasn't why I stopped believing. I stopped believing because I couldn't find the evidence for these things, and in fact I found evidence against some of these things, and then I found liar after liar, and I thought, you don't need to lie if you have the truth, so something's going on here, know. And then I also thought apologetics would save me, but then I learned logic, and I saw the apologetic arguments to have fallacies in them. So that's been my main thing on my channel, is looking at arguments and pointing out the fallacies and say, okay, guys, fix it. Because I'm not going to believe you until you at least fix your argument. But many apologists, for whatever reason, won't even admit that there are fallacies in the argument, let alone attempt to fix them. I don't know why that is. Psychological in nature, I suppose. I don't know. But and then some I've talked to say it's just faith. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I can accept that. I understand that. I don't know why you would want faith rather than facts. I'd rather have facts. I'd rather know than believe. And so I don't know what you want to make of any of that
Yeah,
there. So
and with the Langston story, um, what I was going to say was like everyone's encounter experience is different, and that's what prompted me to want to look for God on my terms, because some people will say oh, if you do this you'll gain this, they give you some type of condition, and the encounter experience I had was nothing like what some people will claim they have, and so some people have a very I guess expressive encounter. Some people it's slightly different, and my I guess my faith comes from looking at the history of it, and I guess that's the whole point of faith, with in which it's a faith-based religion, and it's all at the end of the day I hope that we have the right idea, the right the right deity, the right notion, and not saying that you know not saying that it's a gamble in a sense, because again I look at the history, being a classical apologist myself. I look at the history of it, outside sources, as far as the life, because again, I can only speak on the Christianity portion, to whereas the cornerstone is the life and or the life of Jesus, and not even looking at the Bible, just looking at outside sources who said that there was a man named Jesus and he was crucified, and things like that. And that's where my faith, I looked at the history of it rather than taking a word, what I mean? And not just because I guess some of the, and which I know you've been doing this with a lot of, maybe a lot of apologists, and some of this, or majority of their sources that they use are Christian sources. I didn't look for the Christian sources first. I looked for outside sources as far as the history, and then when we establish, the life of Jesus Christ, then I'm like, okay, now we're heading in a good direction in my sense, that I'd say.
Okay, well, that's an interesting notion. As far as I know, there's no coherent timeline of Jesus's life.
Okay. No
And
coherent.
no coherent one. If you try to use the Bible to establish it with what we know about history, where Pontius Pilate was, you could maybe go backwards. But then Jesus is born, back at this date, but then that doesn't align here, and then the Bible says different dates, and so you can't, using any source you want, it doesn't seem that anybody has been able to form a coherent timeline of when he was born to when he died. And you would think somebody would have been able to do that by now, but nobody has, as far as I know. That doesn't mean it's not out there, but I haven't seen it. And many skeptics have pointed this out, and there was a small quick video that I watched that covered this. It's just, if you went by what the Bible says, the dates there, you have two different dates. You have different, like, he was born here. No, he was here. There was a census done, and here's when that would have happened. Even though there's no records of any censuses like that before, during, or after. There's never been a census like this to have ever taken place in Rome before. But we're going to ignore that, because the census has to happen to move Jesus to where they need him. That's a narrative story. That's not a real life anymore. That's saying you had to be born in Chicago to be special. So we'll just have you be born in Chicago. Whether you were born there or not, doesn't matter. We'll just pretend that you were. And so at that point, I'm saying, if there was this guy, I don't know anything about him, because how do I tell? I can only tell what's negative. I can only reveal what didn't happen. He I don't know if he was born in Bethlehem or Nazareth. I don't know where he was born or when. And that's kind of a problem to establish somebody's existence when we can't even establish that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you have any resources on that. Do you?
So I look at Tacitus. So Tacitus in the Annals 1544, he confirms Jesus, the crucifixion, and the early Christians in Rome under Nero.
Doesn't he just confirm that people believed in that, not that the person existed, because Jesus would have been gone by then, right?
Correct, because that was in AD 116, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so he can't confirm Jesus. He can only confirm that people believed in Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And that's what, in a sense, because it goes to the legend, because of how soon it is, that small period of time, it doesn't, in a sense, meet the criteria to be a legend, in a sense.
Well, do you know how fast it was when Joseph Smith made up his idea to when Mormonism became a religion?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So it only takes a moment to become a legend. You can make up a story in full and people will believe it.
Yeah,
So it doesn't take that long.
So Mormonism, and that's the thing, because even though Mormonism is its own, I guess, I'd say its own
Made up
worldview.
story. It's
Yeah,
completely made up. He fabricated it.
Yeah, because in a sense, it's still built off of the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
But that's not
okay.
really the point. The point I'm saying is it doesn't take long to become a legend. You can make up a story and people will believe that story immediately without any evidence at all. So that took it just took him telling the story and he got a believer on his side almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And people do this all the time.
Correct.
So there is no criteria of it takes X amount of time for a legend to develop. It can be immediately and instantly. So how do we know? We know that people believed in Jesus, but we don't know that there was a Jesus per se.
Right. So my question, I guess my question back to you would be, because even though, again, Mormonism is a form of Christianity, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
I mean, they loosely based it off of that idea, I suppose, but yeah.
Right. I mean, but they still use, even though they have their own Bible, they have some teachings and whatnot from the Bible itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, but Joseph Smith developed the Book of Mormon and another book, but I can't remember offhand. But he, made up this story about an angel appearing to him in a cave and had a golden tablets and all this, and he got Oliver Cowdery and other people to agree with this story, and that's all it took was him just telling them that this happened, and people believed him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been people that are thought to be gurus and will make up a story. I mean, Scientology was based on a story, completely fabricated, whole cloth, made up. Nothing in Scientology is true, not even a little. The guy Ron Hubbard set out to make a religion, and he did. And Dianetics and all that is what the religion is based on,
Mm-hmm.
at least broadly speaking, and it didn't take that long for that to develop. People believe in stuff all the time, and it doesn't take years, which you have for Tacitus and other historians that mention Jesus or mention that people believed in Jesus. You could make Christianity from wholly made up. You don't need the disciples. You don't need Jesus. You could just go around telling people about the story of these people, and somebody will believe it because it's a good story. And then we don't know how mutated that story became over time, because it's very verbal at first until at some point somebody writes down something to get it more canonized. And then, well, how canon was developed and all that's a whole nother thing, a bunch of people,
We'd be here forever.
Right. Well, no, a bunch of people went to a specific place and voted on what they wanted to keep and what they didn't. There's no system there. And, if we look at, we could get into the scientific problems of the Bible. We could get into the historical problems. There's no indication that the Jewish people were in Egypt for any length of time, maybe even at all. There's no signs of exodus of any kind. The numbers are exaggerated. There's problem after problem. But ultimately, none of that matters, because at the end of the day, God's still silent, and we don't even know what God is in the first place. We have what people tell us about God, but nobody can show us the God in question. So, what gives, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, and again, because and the way I look at it, like Luke, in a sense, he had no claim to the priesthood of the Jews, but it was his investigative. Because of course we all know Luke didn't walk with Jesus. It was through his investigative research, as far as the stories he read. His stories were compiled based on the stories of other people, their eyewitness testimony, and that's how we get the book of Luke. So if I look at Tacitus, who was, I'd say he's a historian. Would he in his writings, when he's talking about the crucifixion and everything of Jesus, it would be based on what he's heard. Is that correct? Or what he's gathered, and not just, I heard this one thing. Because one thing I know about historians don't just hear something random and just start writing, oh, this is what I heard.
Yeah, if large enough people believe a story and are talking about that story, the historian's going to say, well, they believe in that, and that's what he did. He said they believe in this stuff, that's their belief. But that doesn't show us that belief is based on anything. For all we know, the reason they believe is somebody told them that this stuff happened, and that's why they believe. I'm not saying that is the case, but it could very well be. So where's the evidence for any of this?
I put it in the writings, even down to
what writings?
Not just Tacitus, but Pliny the Younger, Josephus. They're all saying the same thing.
So Pliny also just commented that people believed in Jesus, and of course Josephus. The problem there is we had a giant forgery happen with him, where people put words into his mouth because they needed to lie to pretend that he was a Christian when he wasn't. And so after that forgery was exposed, now we have a problem in believing anything that he wrote because, well, there was that giant forgery. But again, he only commented that people believed in it. And it's like, hey, there's people that believe in Hinduism. Okay. And if you get some Hindus, you can probably find, if you find some, and you ask them about their local guru that they go to, they might tell you that they've seen their guru levitate. And I've seen at least one video where guru levitated. Of course, you're not allowed to look behind the tent. They're in a tent, and the guru's kind of against the wall a little bit, and he's levitating. And I was like, yeah, because there's something out there that's pulling him up. Duh. And then this one guy went to a Hindu thing, and he sat with Hindus, and he waited for the guru to levitate, and they didn't. And they all said that they saw him levitate, even though it didn't happen. Everyone just said that he did the thing that he didn't do. because people's brains are weird like that. So I have every reason to think that this is just a story, and I'm asking for the evidence of these events, not people believed in it. I want evidence that these events occurred in some tangible way. I already can't test the miracle claims. We know that. I can't observe any. We can't apparently test God the way that we were able to with Baal versus Yahweh, which would be something. We can't do that. I don't know why. So, what if there is no empirical evidence, no repeatable test? The only thing left would be a valid and sound argument. So, is there a valid and sound argument for this version of God?
Again, the going to the writings, and in response to with Josephus, so I guess two of Josephus's skeptics, Mayer and Ehrman, how would you explain that they agree that his mention of Jesus is authentic?
This is again,
He's
mentioning that people believed in Jesus, but this is not the question I asked. If there's no empirical evidence for these things, and I don't think that there is, there's people that have written that people believed in Jesus. Okay. There's people that apparently believed in Jesus, but there's no evidence that Jesus did anything or was, as far as I know. We can't even establish a timeline of Jesus. Jesus apparently beamed back up to heaven, so we can't find his body. That's okay, whatever. But there's no way to test this thing called God, apparently. And so we're left with no empirical evidence, no repeatable test, and a story told that people believed in Jesus. Okay, big deal. People believe in all sorts of things. So we don't have evidence, we don't have tests. So do we have a sound argument for this particular version of God? And if so, can you present that argument?
I guess my presentation would be through Paul or Saul of Tarsus, which historians use even down to his letters.
Which historians?
Hold on 1 second. 1 moment.
And why should I care about this guy? For all I know, he made up a story too. Paul could just be somebody that completely lied about everything and said, oh yeah, I totally had a vision of Jesus. How do I know he's telling the truth? Yeah. Why should I believe a word he said? So do we have evidence? We don't have evidence.
As far as physical evidence, well, no physical.
Okay. And we don't have any archaeological evidence to confirm a lot of these things either. We have a handful of towns and places confirmed. But we don't have any evidence of the God thing itself. And that's a problem. Because I can't believe in something if I don't have a reason to believe in it. So I said, what would be the valid and sound argument? And you go right back to somebody wrote a thing. I don't care. Anybody, you haven't read The Lobsterist, I'm sure. But somebody wrote The Lobsterist. It says it's true many times. But that doesn't make it true. So why should I think any of this is true?
I guess that's where the faith comes into play.
I do have a quick video that I think goes into that a bit, if you don't mind. And I'm sure you have historical things you want me to look at, and I don't. This isn't a debate, so I'm not expecting you to produce that on demand. If you want to email me anything later, I'll gladly link it or talk about it. Challenge. Okay, so this is a very quick video I made, so I'll put that up here for you to check out because it's relevant to faith. if you don't mind. If you do mind, I won't. Okay, good.
No,
Let me know if you can hear.
The challenge.
Step 1. Go outside in underwear only that have hearts on them. Step 2. Spin counterclockwise as you sing I'm a Little Teapot Short and Stout. Don't forget to do the little teapot dance as you do this. Film everything. Then send that film to me and you will get your wishes multiple granted. Okay, nobody has performed this challenge yet. No one has sent me any video of them doing this. The reward is amazing. You get your wishes granted if you do this. So why not do it?
You don't have the what wishes? Yeah, so
whatever wishes you want, whatever ones you have, they'll be granted. Your wishes.
I guess in the sense you don't have the power, I guess, to grant.
How do you know?
I base it solely on the request and the outcome. The request is ridiculous, and
well, I mean, that's just it's not. I mean, that's just what the thing is. I mean, I'm not in charge of that. That's just what you have to do to get your wishes. But nobody has done it to debunk it, right? All you have to do is do it, and then it fails, more than likely. Maybe it doesn't fail. I don't know. Nobody's done it, though. And then it's debunked, right? But nobody has done it. Why has no one done it yet? And you said you just kind of know that I don't have this power. I didn't. It's not necessarily me. It's the universe. I don't know. But you're going to get your wishes granted. And you just believe. You just believe and you do it. And why not do it?
What I'm saying is because the source is your video. So
yeah,
if we're sending the video to you, that means that you have that power to, you would have that power to grant those wishes.
Well, I didn't say it was me, but it's the universe, whatever. But whatever it might be, nobody has sent me that video yet. Can't they just believe that if they do it, it will work? Yeah, and then if it doesn't work, then that belief was faulty. Okay. Right. So what's happening here is I've made a claim and I've provided zero evidence or facts or data to back up my claim. And the point of that video is so that to underline the problem of a unfalsifiable claim. The only way to show that it's false is to do the thing that I asked you to do, which is silly and ridiculous. And then if anyone does it, I get to put that video on YouTube and laugh at them and go, okay, yeah, you didn't get your wishes granted, but look what I got you to do, you silly goof, And so I win. I win either way. But now let's change it. Instead of spinning around in a circle and doing all that, all you have to do is believe X is true without any evidence or test or argument. Just believe it's true, and then you get this wonderful reward for that belief. Same problem. That's my video, right?
And it's because again, it's not what we can't submit what we can, if that makes sense. I can't submit to you what's personal because you know that's not something you can't or will accept because it has to be repeated. It got to be testable, and so that's not something I can submit. And right. So and so that's the thing. And to me, that's two different things, because if someone walks outside in their underwear, they can walk outside 15 times in their underwear and submit 15 videos out of hopes of getting their wishes granted from whomever, not, if right. That's just right. The request. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, and I get your argument. I get what you're saying. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to a degree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that really kind of, and tell me if I'm wrong here, So just to recover, I know I'm repeating myself. Empirical evidence, we understand what that is. Just in case, it's like here's a lobster there. That's empirical evidence of the lobster. Repeatable
Right.
test. Hey, it's gonna fall down. Okay, it's gonna do. It does that every time. Okay, so we know what these words mean, and then we have sound argument, and offhand, I don't know if you have an argument per se. It seems like you're kind of going to look at this history thing, look at that history thing, and I'm like, well, that's not what I need. I need
Right.
self.
And I know it's the because conversation I had with Bill,
right.
And even in your video, when you did your video, you was talking about having the informal versus the formal argument. We I guess the divide between atheists and theists will always end up on two different pages, because what you would like as far as empirical evidence, we can only provide through faith, and also looking at the historical of other people, what's been written, I guess the empty tomb theory, these things, that's what we go by, and even down to, I haven't even touched, like the philosophical side of, like, the Kalem's cosmological argument and stuff like that, or the teleological, because while the teleological and Kalem is an argument, it's just not going to provide what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Well, with the Kalam, I thought Kalam, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how it's said. I don't know. I mispronounce words all the time. But yeah, the Kalam, there's logical fallacies in that. The first statement it provides, first of all, there's a superlative used. We don't know about everything, so we can't
Correct.
say everything. And so already we have a problem in the statement, everything that begins to exist. Well, wait a minute. What you mean to say is what we have locally observed so far has this characteristic. And so you need to change the wording of the argument. Then you have another fallacy, which is a compositional fallacy, in that it assumes that the parts are equal to the whole, that just because things begin to exist, have a cause that we've observed, that doesn't mean that everything is also that way. Also, of course, we have the counterexample of quantum physics, where things may not be caused in a classical sense. And then we have the scientific problem of what's called the Planck temperature, where the universe is really, really hot. And at that temperature, we don't know if cause and effect is even a thing anymore. So the deductive argument cannot function, because we don't know what logic applies to a universe of that sort of heat. And so those are only some of the problems that argument has. I have a video called KCA where I outline all the other problems that it has. So that's a lot of problems. And then at best, even if you ignored all that, you have then, okay, there's a beginning of the universe. Big deal. So what? And then they go, yes, and that beginning is blah, 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 God. And it's like, well, that requires more arguments that you didn't even bother to give. So you have a non-sound argument. And so we have to be skeptical of it. And the fact that me and other skeptics and atheists, agnostics, etc., have pointed out numerous times that this argument doesn't work. Scientists have gone over the Kalam. They've explained why it doesn't work. And yet, this is it. This is your bag of tricks. And it's like, yeah, we've seen that one. We know how the trick is done. So
Right.
I don't understand why keep using it when it doesn't work. It's not gonna work.
And my question, and which one of my students wanted me to ask.
Oh yeah. Get to the question. Yeah. Please.
No, you're good. And
yeah, sorry. I know.
No, you're. No, first off, and I think some of my students might be in here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your platform, man, and I would love to come back in the future.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I do need to work on giving equal time. So please.
I know you're good, man. This is your platform. Hey, I'm a guest at your house. Um, so, as an atheist, how would you all? Because we know the Big Bang theory is technically still a theory. So, what would be your explanation as to how the millions, I'd say, of random events that occur, the fine tuning of our universe and this earth? How would you explain that as an atheist?
Okay, well, this is a complex question. I have to kind of unpack it.
Yeah, do
So,
you think? I'm on your
yeah,
platform.
right. The statement as an atheist doesn't work.
Or,
Um,
or how would you? I'm sorry, not
yeah,
as
no,
an
no.
atheist.
I'm just no. I want to answer the question
Okay.
properly for the student who asked it, because atheists or theists, for that matter, do not tell you enough information about the ideas that that person holds. They are not worldviews. So the word atheist, the word theist, these are not worldviews in and of themselves. And for whatever reason, many theist apologists say that atheists have a worldview. That whatever the worldview is, it is not atheism, because that's just a description, not a prescription. Theist is also not a worldview, nor is Republican or Democrat, although maybe some people treat them like their worldviews. Christian is closer to a worldview because it tells you morality, your purpose, where you came from, where you're going, and things like that. But atheism, in and of itself, doesn't do that. It's just a label. It just means I don't believe in God, and or I will make the statement there is no God, depending on what kind of atheist I am, and I'm a little bit of both because I love being confusing. Okay, so there is no as an atheist. So that's out of the way. Okay, the Big Bang cosmology, they said it's a theory. The word theory in science means something very specific that it doesn't mean in everyday colloquial conversation. There's that channel game theory. It's just a theory, a game theory. And every time I'm just like, because that means it's just a guess. But in science, the word theory means something else, and you can look up what it means. I mean, I can tell you what it means, but it's more interesting for your student and or you or whoever else to find that information on their own. And although you have to be careful with ChatGPT, it is fun to play with. It will tell you what a scientific theory is and get it decently right. But I would encourage to do deeper research, look at philosophy. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy explains it. Wikipedia covers it decently enough. Other more scientific pages will explain what the word theory means in science. So it doesn't just mean a guess. Big Bang cosmology is one of many competing cosmologies that exist. It is among the more popular, but there is a book that I still need to get, but it's called The Battle of the Big Bang. And this has several different cosmologies in it. So I guess I'm adverting that book, and I'll put the book in the description. But there's plenty of different cosmological models, and these models are based on mathematics and observation. Okay, then we have fine tuning. What is fine tuning versus what people think it is? So what it really is there's certain parameters, if you will, that we've noticed are true about the universe we exist in. So gravity is a certain thing, and the weak atomic force is a certain thing, and so on and so forth. Some of these parameters can be very different. They could have been this, they could have been that, and life as we know it would still exist. But if they were way off, then life as we know it wouldn't exist. But we don't know that that means that life would be impossible completely, because there's no model to show that. And we also don't know if it's even possible for that to go that far. So that's one of many problems with fine tuning. Is it doesn't say that the universe is tuned for life, rather that, because I mean the universe was around for it's been around for 13 billion years, and we've only been around for 4.54 billion years. So 13 minus 4, 13, 12, 11, 10. So yeah, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Okay, so for 9 billion years, the universe did just fine without life. So it's not like it's not like life can exist everywhere. It can only exist, as far as we know, on this one planet. And it's like, well, does that mean something special? If you want it to, but I don't know that it does. There was a million sperm that could have been me, but I won. The other sperm didn't win. They died. And sucks to be them. And there was however many eggs that could have been me, and they died. Sucks to be them. So is it unique and special that I'm me and not a lobster? I mean, you can sit there and go, wow, that's amazing. It is amazing that we're here. But does that mean that it was built for us? I can't make that conclusion. Explain how this works. I'm not a scientist. I can't do that. You would have to read scientific cosmology. You'd have to, there's scientific papers on this. And reading those papers is very difficult because they have complicated words and notions, and you're going to have to learn what those mean, and you're going to have to learn. So, hey, yeah, go learn stuff. It's an amazing reality. The way it really is really amazing. Our atoms were made billions of years ago in stars that exploded and died for us. Stars died for us, for sure. You and I are made out of the universe. We are the universe in that sense. And when we expire, and even now as I speak, pieces of me flake off and float into the atmosphere. And so eventually you'll breathe that in, and I'll become part of you, and you'll become part of me. And that's kind of neat. That's real to some extent. Now, we're not aware of it. We don't know that I'm part of you or that you're part of me, but we're definitely part of the universe. If there was no life, there would be no life to say, why are we here? That's kind of obvious. So there's the multi-universe theory and all that, or idea. There's all these ideas out there. And I'm like, I don't know which one's right. I have no idea. I cannot answer the fundamental nature of reality. But I can say this: science explores what we can explore about reality. Mathematics will be useful in that exploration, as well as cosmology, studying the stars, things like this. But we might never know the answer. I don't know. Maybe your student will figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Science explores what we can, but theism, religion, asserts. It says, here's the thing, that's true, the end. Science says, we don't know. Let's find out. And if there's a God, maybe we'll find God along that journey, and that'd be really neat. So anyways, hopefully that answered that question as best as I could.
And if not, or I'm pretty sure it did, because I posted, I got the link in my group. So my group on Facebook, they're probably watching, or they'll probably go back and watch this, which leads to the next question.
Go ahead. Yes.
Next question. Let me see. They ask, would you accept God's existence if the evidence led there, or are you committed to what you believe? Okay.
Of course. If there's empirical evidence, repeatable test, or a sound argument, I will accept the claim, whatever the claim is. Absolutely. Without any hesitation. And then I would proceed to argue for it on my channel. I guess I would rename my channel, but yeah.
All right. And that's the thing. And another one of my students, from your experience, from you've been doing this a long time. I've watched quite a few of your videos in the time waiting up to this moment.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So
some are better than others.
You're opening top of the line. So as and this is something I brought up with my students. We talked about it earlier. Avoiding the personal testimony, avoiding precept. In your, I guess, conversations that you've had with theists, what is the number one thing you run into? Like you brought up some great points here, some talking points regarding the history, talking about other people, talking about Jesus and stuff like that. So, if you could give advice to a theist who wants to talk with an atheist, what advice would that be? I think that's a loaded question, I guess. I don't know.
Be honest. And that goes, for my duty is to the truth. My brother wrote a book called Unapologetic, and I had a conversation with him about that book, and he makes the case, and I suppose you could debate him if you wanted to. He makes the case that Christianity, as you've said or suggested here, is a faith-based system. So just say, I have a faith. I believe X. There need be no debate there. I don't believe X. Okay, there's no burden there. Belief statements are free from the burden of proof. I believe leprechauns eat cereal in the morning. Whatever, okay. Who cares? I don't know why you believe that. We can have that conversation. Why do you believe that? Rather than say there is a God, say I believe in God. Because if you say there is or there isn't, you gain the burden of proof, and now you need to prove it, which you cannot do to the satisfaction of the skeptic who is looking for certain things that religion just doesn't have for whatever reason. And there's theological answers for all that, divine hiddenness and so on. But just say I have a faith, and the person will say, okay, well, I don't. And maybe that's it. And just be a person to them. You don't need to tell them how awesome Jesus is, because maybe they're happy enough as they are without that. Maybe they've heard that story. So just be honest. Don't try to convert or preach or whatever. I know the thing says to spread the gospel or whatever, but just be honest. Say, hey, do you want to hear about this thing? No? Okay, cool. Let's play Nintendo or whatever, because we and that would just be, I guess that would be my advice, to just be honest and say that it's just faith. Unless you have something, then by all means present that. So that would be that. Yeah.
Lastly, one of my students wanted me to ask, first off, again, thank you for this opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Enjoy it.
One of my students wanted me to ask, okay, so if you're skeptic of God, believing that there's no God, I don't know why they wanted me to ask. Maybe it's the season. Do you believe in ghosts, spirits, demons?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. It's a good question, because to be atheist just means no God. I could hypothetically believe in ghosts, demons, angels, devils, whatever. As long as it's not God, I'm technically an atheist.
Okay.
My experience has been that most atheists don't believe in that other stuff either. I'm trying to do polls and find out what people believe. Of course, they're going to be limited because I only have so many people that are going to respond and that I know. But the paranormal, supernatural elements, whether it be extrasensory power that you can read minds, or you can precog, or you're a psychic, or Ouija board, or any of that stuff, is just make believe. Spirits, souls, there doesn't appear to be any evidence of those things. There's certainly good stories, and I enjoy listening to scary stories, but that's just all it is. And there's reasons why we see people more, and we rarely see any animals, and we never see any insect souls. There's no insect ghosts. There'd be other questions I'd have about ghosts. Like, well, why wouldn't they fall through the ground all the way to the middle of the planet? Because if they can walk through matter, that means they're not physical. So then are they attracted by gravity? Then they'd go to the center of the Earth. If they're not attracted by gravity, then they'd be flung off the Earth by the rotation of the Earth. What if you die in an airplane? Are you stuck in that airplane, or are you stuck in the spot you died? So anyways, so no, I don't believe in spirits or ghosts or angels, devils, demons, any of that paranormal, supernatural, any of that stuff. I just don't believe in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the magic that I would agree with would be what Penn and Teller do. That show Fool Us. I love that show. That's magic, and it's just sleight of hand and illusions and whatever. Yeah. And I think that's cool and it's fun. And it's interesting. It's like, how did they do that? Try to figure out how they did it. And it's like, I don't know how they did that. That was pretty cool though. They did that. Okay. And then you learn, if you do learn how they do, it's like, oh, okay. Okay. And it's fun to pretend. It's fun to have an imagination. I've had imaginary friends my entire life. Still do. Right, guys? Right. Okay. Listen here, producer. Anyway. Don't tell them about the thing. What thing? No, okay. Anyways. All right. I'm sorry. I'm back now. I'm only slightly crazy. But the important thing is to not believe the story, obviously. The Ouija board, it's like, oh, it's just a thing, okay? There's a reason it works. And the reason it works is kind of boring. People's nerves move a little bit. And so when you have more people on the same thing, the thing will start to kind of move, and you're doing it subconsciously, so you're not aware of it. This is a trick anyone can do. Sometimes paranormal people like to do. It would work better with a thin wire, but you can make it. So I can make it move. Ooh, and I'm not moving my hand. How am I doing that? Ooh, it's moving. Oh my goodness! And it's just the nerve endings in your fingers that are doing it. James Randi exposed many of these tricks back in the day. I would say to check him out. Be skeptical, because people will lie and people can be wrong. And if there is any thing more to reality than what we can perceive, then we can't perceive it anyways. And so it wouldn't be able to interact with us. So I don't think there's anything to fear about that sort of realm. So I don't know if that answers the question. I'm trying to answer it multiple ways. Okay.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you answered it. But most definitely,
I could have just said no. It dawns on me. I could have just said no, but I don't know.
Look, Dan. This is your platform, man. I'm greatly appreciative for this talk, man.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
What I'll do for you next time, we'll do a straight interview. That way I can get your background and all of that, and just you'll be talking, and I'll just be like, here's a question, and I'll shut up for once, and that will give you more time to say stuff.
It was great. I enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate the conversation.
I appreciate you too, and I'm very humbled that I'm gonna be in some paper, which is cool. If I have permission to share that with people on YouTube, I'd like to do that.
Of course, okay, 100%.
Cool. Amazing. Well, I'll give you the final words, and we'll call it a day, because we've been here, a short amount of time. And so go ahead and whatever you want to say to us, go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. Again, I'm grateful for the opportunity for Dan. And as I told Bill, I'm your new theist friend. So, I see no animosity. I appreciate this. This actually, I look forward to doing this in the future, because it helps strengthen, I guess, in a sense, my argument, as well as seeing the other side. And I make a joke every now and then, there's different denominations of atheism. No, I'm just playing, but but no, I enjoyed this. I did one thing I didn't want to do, and I told Bill I don't run away from conversation, and I'm glad we got this opportunity. And again, Dan, you got my email. I look forward to doing this again with you, man. And thank you again for the opportunity being on this platform. No animosity, no craziness here. Dan is my friend, guys. So
I appreciate that. I did forget to ask Shat to ask you questions.
Oh,
well, I suck.
No, you're good.
Tell you guys what, you put the questions for this guy in the comments on this video. That will help me on YouTube. And then he'll be like, then I'll have to come back and be like, All right. Thank you for your time and energy, sir. And you have a good day. Stick around a moment. I'm going to go ahead and hit the button here.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Be skeptical and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Hold on. Okay. And